Pataliputra. Pataliputra. We're going to start there because it was the capital. And of course in the capital, Chandragupta, he is the ruler at the time. And he builds this huge development. And in this development, it is houses and buildings, and they're all encompassed, and we're going to get into more detail in the next slide of exactly what they are. But the key to this is that they were built out of timber. What happens to timber, especially when you're looking around 300 BCE?
It rots.
Yeah, it's gone. So basically what we have left is basically a few beams left and some written accounts of the place. But what they are known for is this polished wood. They made statues out of this polished wood. They made other things out of this polished wood. But what it does is it is worked to a point that it actually glistens. It was claimed that it almost shined so much it was like a mirror. So when you looked at the wood, you could actually see almost a reflection of yourself. So they perfected the skill of polishing wood. That's very, very important to know. Again, where was it located? By the Ganges River, which again is an important thing, because why do they build these huge complexes by rivers? Wow, you guys are really sleeping. It's Friday and everything, and it's Valentine's Day, and you guys are like, yeah. Okay, why do they build next to rivers? Every civilization, we talked about this. The water, but what do they need the water for? For trading, for transportation, for drinking, or bathing, or bringing it into their area. So the river is very, very important. So the location is very, very important. Patna is where it is. Chandragupta is, again, the ruler of this time, and this is what we're going to be looking at. His complex that he created was 9 miles, and this is supposed to be 1.5 miles. It was a fortified area, meaning it had a fence going all the way around, made out of wood. They hadn't ventured into stones and rocks yet. Again, there's only a few beams left, which were basically teak wood. It's a type of wood, T-E-A-K, that have survived. This complex actually housed 2 palaces in here. So there was 2 palaces. It had 95 stadiums or gathering areas. The city was surrounded by a wooden wall, which again had slots in it so that they could protect. So the slots were for what? What do you think they did to the slots?
Spears, something through it to...
Not spears, but...
Cannons or guns?
Not swords.
Arrows.
Arrows, yes, it would be arrows. So they had little slots in there so that they could shoot their arrows if any enemies were coming. If they had these little slots, that also meant that they had watchtowers going all the way around the outside. They had 570 watchtowers going around this thing for protection, to look for that invasion. Not only did it have that many, being this long, 9 miles, it had a lot of gates and entrances to it. It had 64 gates, so you could enter at different parts of it. Yes?
Were any of the numbers significant?
I haven't read anything about the numbers being significant. I don't know if they were or not. I don't think so, because 64, none of that has rung. And you know, if it was 49, but Buddha wasn't existed yet, so no, I don't think there's any significance. It would have to be something with the Hindu religion, and I don't recall it.
How do we know that they had like a fence around it? It was made of wood, and they have like deteriorated over time?
Good question. How do we know things that are gone?
Written down.
Written down, absolutely. There was a Greek ambassador that went to visit, and he wrote down about the grandeurs of this fort. His name was Megasthenes, and you don't need to know that it was Megasthenes, but Megasthenes went to visit. He was an ambassador, and he wrote about this huge complex and the luxuries that were inside that huge complex. Not only did they have a fence around it with towers and arrows, also dug a big trench all the way around it. That trench was also used for defense, and it was also used for sewage. So that's where they dumped their sewage. And this kind of smells a little bit, so I think, you know, the cows would probably be inside a little bit more. Again, I haven't read a lot of documentation about this sport. I just know that it exists, and I know these dimensions that are there. When you think about this, let's see. Wall, places to shoot arrows out, and a trench going all around it. What does that sound like to you guys that you're probably a little more familiar with? Castles. Talk about castles, typically made out of stone, but castles do the same thing. They have watchtowers around them. They usually have a stone wall. They have a big moat. They call it a moat instead of a trench. They have a drawbridge that comes up. Usually castles don't have as many entrances as this. Every time you have an entrance to something like this, it causes a weakness, right? Because that's that many more places to get in. So that does cause a weakness. Usually castles maybe had one major gate, maybe two going into them. So, Megasthenes, who wrote about this, he also wrote about these. He wrote about the splendors. And see if you can understand what he's talking about. He said, in this area, it's great in agriculture. They have reeds which produce honey without bees. What are reeds that produce honey without bees?
Sugarcane?
Sugarcane, absolutely. So he was describing sugarcane to them. He also says that they have trees which grow wool. What trees would grow wool?
Cotton?
Cotton, yeah. So that was his description of some of the agriculture that was going around it. And again, that's where we get this information about what this sport looked like. That is all I'm going to talk about, because obviously I don't have any pictures to show you. I can only describe what it looks like. So we're going to go right into Ashoka, who was the grandson of this great ruler. The big change as far as art goes when it comes to Ashoka, he thought in stone. Where his grandpa thought in wood, he thought in stone. So everything that they tried to make in stone or wood, he tried to make in stone. He created these big freestanding pillars, which Miss Winjet was talking about. They were made out of stone. He created railings that went around the top of stupas. They were made out of stone. He created these big lion throne type things. They were made out of stone. He made colossal figures, which were made out of stone. And of course, some of his buildings that he created, whether it was monasteries, universities, or palaces, some of those were made out of stone also. So not only did they think in stone, he took that one characteristic that his grandpa had with his artist. The artist took that wood and polished it. He did the same thing with stone. The stone that the artists were using when they were done with them had a beautiful gleam to them. They just shined. So basically, we were replacing everything that was done in wood into stone. And they had that great perfection on the stone, that high luster polish, which people claim looks like enamel. Enamel is that shiny surface that they put on top. One thing Ashoka was known for is something that he did. He developed all these stupas. And one of the most famous stupas is in Sarnath. And what you're looking at right now is not the size that Ashoka created. It was much smaller, but over time people have added on to it, so it's gotten larger and larger and larger. Do you guys remember when we first started talking about India, and we were in, oh my gosh, what city were we in? Slips my mind. You guys know?
Indus Valley.
Yeah, Indus Valley, but what was the cities? The one with the bathhouse. It'll come to me in about a half hour. But anyhow, remember that I said there was a stupa there that didn't exist at the time of the building? Okay? They keep adding on to these stupas. So sometimes what we see now is not what it looked like back then. So Sarnath is a very important place. Did Ms. Winjet talk about Sarnath and what was important about it? No? Okay, this is supposedly where Buddha gave his first sermon and taught the Dharma. And his first sermon was given to 5 monks, 5 followers. Emperor Ashoka went and visited this in 234 BCE. And that's when he decided he needed to construct this stupa.
Is it Mohenjo-Daro?
Mohenjo-Daro, thank you. I was like, I can't remember that name, but yeah, remember I said that's that big thing up there, the stupa, don't worry about it, it comes later on, and it came later on.